Hey, everybody, it's Greg Harrelson here with the Level Up podcast. And as you have heard many times, I've got my co-host and my collar up. So let me fix my collar. But I've got my co-host, Brendan Payne, with me. And we're going to discuss today three things that we've identified in our coaching, three things that we've identified that's causing failure within agents. And it's actually something that agents are doing or not doing that's causing failure, especially during a transitioning market. So, Brendan, thank you so much for joining me on another Level Up podcast.
Yep, I'm looking forward to it. This is going to be a good one.
Yeah. Well, I'm just going to jump right into it for the sake of time and just make sure we give a lot of meat to this conversation. And so when I'm thinking of three things, one of the things that I thought of is there's this term out there. Now, I've heard this term more in corporate America. And it's called quietly quitting. If you guys want to Google that term, you're probably going to see some things on this about quietly quitting. Now, I'd never heard this term in business in the past. And when I kind of looked into it and I heard about it, my summary or my kind of definition or description of what that means is there are people out there that are just getting by doing just enough to not be fired. They're not wanting to quit their job. They're not wanting to do anything more to actually to advance their position. They're just doing the bare minimum to get by. And a lot of this is coming because of the pandemic, and people had to leave their offices, go to work from home, and they lost that fire, that motivation. And then now all of a sudden it's kind of complacency sitting in, and people are just, again, waking up, getting through their day, and they've quietly quit. Again, quitting would be they no longer work there. Quietly quitting means they're still there. They're still getting paid. They're on the payroll, but they just haven't informed their boss or their employers that they are kind of like checked out. I actually think, Brendan, that's what's going on in the real estate industry for so many people. I think people are saying, no, I'm still working. Yes, but are you working with that fire, with that desire, with that motivation? Well, no, kind of lost that. Yeah. And that's affecting everything else. So before we go on to the next one here, under quietly quitting, I kind of wrote some notes here. Areas where people have quietly quitted, to give you an example, in my opinion, is their attitude. The attitude is kind of like, gosh, I don't know if I really need to go in today. There's nothing really going on. Mm-hmm. It's an attitude. That's kind of like versus, I'm going to go make something happen. That quietly quitting is like, there's not really much going on. Not quietly quitting, being fully engaged is I'm good. I'm getting in and I'm going to make something happen. And then, of course, you got the approach, quietly quitting in the area of approach where people they know they need to use this certain script or this presentation, but what they're doing is they're just showing up, maybe not preparing as much, and they're just kind of winging it. They're not following a proven or a consistent presentation right now. They used to. And they knew they had to say this and this and this to get business before. But now, because they kind of have like a negative attitude or a defeated attitude, people are going in there and they're just kind of winging it from an approach. It's not an approach by design. And then the third area where they're quietly quitting, in my opinion, Brendan, is where it comes to the expectations. They're like, well, they're not really going to buy anyways because the interest rates are so high. So that's kind of what I'm seeing as a big thing. That's a lot of that's mental, right, Brendan? I mean, sure. It's mental, but that's causing failure, contributing to failure, or it's going to lead to failure.
Yeah. Great point. And I think that if you go back probably 9 or 10 months ago, we had a conversation. I don't remember if it was on Level Up or not, but I remember talking about, I actually felt 10 months ago that there was a lot of the agents that were in the same position. We weren't hearing that term quietly quitting. But because the market was so challenging, being able to get buyers and deals, and there were new agents in the business, it was tougher to get listings, then I feel like a lot of people were kind of feeling like, oh man, is this going to work? But they didn't want to say anything because the market was so hot. You'd look silly going, I'm failing in this really, really strong real estate market. Well, now, how much easier is it going to be for people to say, well, nothing's going on right now anyway, so I'm taking the easy. I'm not really quitting. It's just everybody's having challenges. There's a lot of risk for agents right now. So I'm glad you bring this up so people can, if you're seeing that in your own business, be aware of it. It's a real thing.
Yeah. All right. Well, cool. What's your next one? What's another one?
So another one we talked about was this is a result of that quietly quitting, is you start seeing some gaps. Like when you aren't in it mentally, when you go in with the wrong attitude, the wrong approach, the wrong expectations, then it's going to show up in the results that you actually get with, your clients and your prospects that you're working with. But the other thing that we see happening is we're physically inserting gaps into the stuff that we know we have to do to keep a full pipeline. So you can imagine when you are on and you're like, all right, I've got to generate every day. In order to generate every day, I've got to get up every day. I've got to get my pregame going. Then I've got to show up for the game. Then I've got to set my appointments. When you do all that stuff consistently, your pipeline's full. Yeah. And as long as you keep doing that, there's no gaps in it. There's no air in the water pipe. When you start taking breaks, then you start inserting these little gaps in production. And as we've talked about before, the challenge in this business is that those gaps in what you do today don't show up tonight. You don't leave tonight, go, oh, I didn't work today, and now you see the result of it. You see it a few months down the road because there's a lag between what we do on a daily basis and when those results, which for us are paychecks, when they show up down the road. Yeah. So you keep inserting these little gaps in your production, and then a few months down the road, one, your income's got gaps in it. Two, mentally, really hard to ride this up and down roller coaster. And so those gaps that we're inserting right now by not consistently showing up and doing what we know we have to do are really, I think, have the potential to really wreak havoc on our production and our business.
Yeah. I think of it as kind of being in a car, and you kind of got your foot on the gas and then the brake, and then the gas and then the brake, and where it's much better just to put it in cruise control.
Yeah. We've all run people like that.
Yeah. Just be consistent, like be consistent. Even if you're a little bit slower, but you're consistent. I mean, that's going to have, it's going to provide way more benefits in the long run. Mm-hmm. And it's interesting because as I'm coaching agents, Brendan, I hear these agents saying things, one day it's like 1 week. Oh my gosh, I wrote 3 contracts. And then like 2 weeks later, it's like, man, I don't have any leads. And it's like, what's going on? Like that's an effect of a cause. And what we have to all do is we have to kind of look at what is the cause that's creating that effect, mm-hmm. and change the cause. And consistent activity breeds consistent, outflow out of your pipeline, consistent opportunities. Really does. Yeah. What's interesting is, you and I we're talking about 3 things that people do to fail. Obviously, we don't want anyone to fail, but we're just kind of going at it in reverse versus 3 things that they need to do to succeed. But notice how both of us have come up with things that are more mental. Mm-hmm. Or I should say, these are things that we completely control. Yeah. Right. Where, we're not blaming like the market. These are things that we can control. So, it just goes back to you that are listening in the audience here. It's just like, let's control what we can control, and let's not like stress and focus too much on the things that we can't control. Yeah. The third one that I had, and you actually brought this one up when we were talking, and so it made the list, and that is where, a lot of agents have let their guard down, or I should say their mental guards down. And what I mean by that is we have to be very protective over our thoughts, over our mindset. And unfortunately, there's a lot of news, there's a lot of negativity. And I know we've been talking for a year, don't watch the news. I'm really not referring to that. Right now, I think more damaging than the news is the conversations amongst agents in offices, that when they're going up to each other, says, I don't have any leads, do you? And then they say, no, I haven't gotten a lead in a long time, and the ones that I have are no good. Wow, that's exactly what I'm thinking. Like, all my buyers are telling me they're not going to do anything. Yeah. That conversation is dangerous. Now, people that are having that conversation, they're not bad people. I'm not passing judgment on them. But we as individuals, we have to be guarded and protect our own thoughts by making sure that we do not participate in any of those conversations. The glass has to be half full. That's it, period. There's no other options.
Yeah. 100%.
Thoughts on that?
Yeah, 100%. And I look at it like we all use technology at some level in this business. And you probably wouldn't just go buy, your phone or your laptop and not put a password in, not put your thumbprint in, not put your Face ID in to unlock it and just leave it around somewhere where anybody can get into it. But the cost of what we do with what's going on in our head and what we expose us to, it's the same thing. We don't lock that up. We should be locking that up with what's around us, what we let in, the messages that we allow to occupy space, because we already know there's a reality happening. There's things slow down. You might see it in your income. You might see it in your lead flow. That's a reality. You don't need anything else telling you what's actually happening right now. What you need is something telling you this is happening, but here's how we're going to get through it. And all of the rest of the stuff is just virus. It's like we need antivirus for our mindset, and we need something to lock out all that stuff. And a lot of it comes from, like you said, who you're surrounding yourself with. So at all times, it's important. But right now, I don't think there's anything more important than really taking an inventory of who's influencing you right now in your business, who's influencing you on your market, and are you actually forming an opinion of what's going on, and does it serve your business? Because in the absence of you forming your own opinion and then going out and doing what you need to do, then someone else is forming their opinion and influencing you. And most of the time, it's probably really negative for your business.
Yeah. Yeah. What's kind of going through my mind right now is as agents, our next breakthrough will originate from our thoughts. Like, we're not going to break through in this new market by thinking, oh gosh, no one's going to do anything.
Yeah.
It's just because that's going to lead to lack of activity, which is going to be the opposite of a breakthrough. It's going to continue a breakdown. So we have to understand the flow. There's a thought, influences activities. Activities influence results. That's the way the dominoes will fall. So if we want results, we just have to reverse engineer this. Okay, if results are going to come from our activities, and our activities are influenced by our thoughts, then the first domino is our thoughts. What are you doing to push over that positive domino? That's where your breakthrough will come from. It doesn't matter what the market's doing.
Gosh. And if you're out there right now and you have been working really, really hard, and you're like, I'm working more than I ever have, and you're not seeing the results, start with what you just said. Because I see people working their butts off right now, but not getting what they should. And it's not for lack of effort. It's for lack of belief.
Yeah, that's awesome. All right. Well, hey, that's a wrap. I think we gave it to them. There's three reasons or three things that agents are doing or not doing, I guess, however you want to look at it, that's creating failure. And sometimes when we look at it from that angle, then we're like, okay, now that I'm aware these are the things that I'm doing that's causing this poor result, then I can control it by doing something different. So all of you out there with the Level Up podcast, you listeners, and those of you that might see this on Facebook or YouTube, please go ahead, change your thoughts, change that state of mind, and the results will follow.
Yep.
Bye, everybody.